Hi, this is Darren with Strumpatterns.com, and welcome to another video in the Beginner's Music Theory series. In this video, we're going to take a look at what is pitch and what are notes. Of all the videos in this series, this one's probably going to have the least amount of immediate application. However, we're going to be using the terms pitch and notes throughout the entire series, so I think it's a good idea to have an understanding of what we actually mean by those things. I also think it'll be interesting to take a look at what's happening in the musical sound world just beneath the surface, at an area that often musicians don't take the time to really stop and consider. But once we do, I think you'll find that it has its kind of own unique beauty to it. However, if you don't pick up on every idea that's in this video, I wouldn't worry too much about it because most of the concepts in the future aren't going to really be too related to this. As I said, it's just kind of an overview of what's happening and where these ideas of pitch and note come from. But once we've already kind of got that established, we're not going to need to come back to it. Maybe we can just consider it something to broaden you as a musician. So just sit back and relax and enjoy the video. So what is a pitch? Without getting too technical, a pitch is a sound that happens at a specific speed. Now, some sounds are collections of pitches, like a clap of thunder has so many pitches happening at once that it sounds like noise to our ears. It becomes indistinguishable. But something that has only a single frequency with it will sound like a pitch to our ears, like a single note. Some sounds will move quicker and those sound higher to our ears. Some sounds move slower and they sound lower to our ears. As the sound gets more simplified, we can distinguish a specific frequency, and that sounds like pitch to us. Since sound can happen in a nearly infinite number of frequencies, that means that there are also nearly an infinite number of pitches as well. However, the human ear has two important limiting factors, and the first of those is the range of frequencies that it can hear. So sound that happens above a certain frequency we can't hear, as well as sounds that happen below a certain frequency are also inaudible to us. The second limiting factor is our difficulty in distinguishing between two frequencies that are close together. So if you've ever tried to tune an instrument by ear and had difficulty with that, that was because you were running into this limitation. So because of these limitations of our ear, we will select certain frequencies and we'll declare them notes. So for example, at 440 hertz, there's a note. And then at 220 hertz, there's another note. And in between those two frequencies, we have 11 other notes that we use. Anything between 440 and 220 that is not one of those specific frequencies is not considered a note. It simply musically doesn't exist. So, for example, 439 hertz is not a note. 438 hertz is not a note. So different places in the world have different collections of notes. So they divide up that 440 or that 220, that range there. They might divide it up in slightly different ways. There will be a lot of overlap. There will be a lot of similarity in the notes because the mathematics that's actually happening and the physics that's happening there is universal. But there are certain steps in between some of these notes that some areas of the world will use and other areas won't. So for example, the sitar has some frets on it that you can't find on the guitar. Similarly with the oud in the Middle East or the pipa in the Far East. There are different instruments that have different notes on it, and different places in the world have different collections of notes. However, what you're probably used to hearing on the radio, for example, is that collection of 11 notes that happens between the 440 hertz and 220 hertz. So in the video here, you can see the effect that a single pure frequency has on water. And notice that as the frequency goes up, as the hertz increases, that the speed of the waves also increases. And the shapes that each wave makes are a little bit smaller. And of course the opposite is true. As the hertz goes down, the frequency is getting slower and the waves are getting slower, and each little wave is a little bit larger. So I wanted to thank Moses Hacmon for allowing me to use his video, and be sure to check out his YouTube channel so that you can watch the original video as well as some of his other videos that have to do with sound and water. And that's it for this video. But it's not the end of the video series, so be sure to click here to catch the next video in the series. Also, click here if you'd like to catch the very first video in the series. If you'd like to subscribe to my YouTube channel, click here so that you don't miss out on future videos. Leave any questions or comments you have down below. Also, you could follow me on Facebook, Google+, or Twitter by clicking here. And if you'd like to support me and keep these videos coming, you can click here to make a donation. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next video, and thank you for watching.